All right, everybody, welcome to the Autoimmune Healing Foundations class series. And so in this 5-part series, we're going to go over, first off, my story with autoimmune disease, how I came down with one and how I healed, and it got me into the work that I'm doing today. Then we're going to get into the pitfalls of the medical model and why so many people have a hard time with it, hard time getting results, and what isn't working about it, what you can do instead. And then we'll get into the 3 foods that create disease, that cause disease, and the 3 foods that create health and reverse disease. And lastly, I'll share a bunch of case studies of clients of mine that have worked to reverse all sorts of autoimmune disease: Sjogren's, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, pemphigoid bullous, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, the list goes on. So stick around to the end for that and watch all 5 classes. I'm also the author of this book, which was an Amazon bestseller in several categories: Create Health, Reverse Autoimmune Disease Without Drugs or Their Side Effects. And so if you want a copy of this, you can go to createhealthbook.com to get an e-copy, or if you want a paperback book, you can find it on Amazon. This is basically the manual for reversing autoimmune disease. I created this book really to give to my past self on how to heal. Like, if I could go back 15 years in the past and show up in a time machine and say, "Here, Ben, read this book." This is what this book was for. So I want to share that before I was Dr. Ben, I was just Ben, okay? And I'm 43 years old as the making of this video. And when I was around 28, about 15 years ago, I came down with a bunch of symptoms that I didn't realize at the time were autoimmune, okay? And so this was before I was a doctor. I was actually an engineer working in the microchip industry for 10 years. If you ever seen the movie Office Space, it was a lot like that. It was a lot of Excel spreadsheets, TPS reports. It paid well. It wasn't that engaging, but it was a lucrative career that people thought highly of me. And I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed parts of it, but it wasn't really fulfilling. It wasn't really my life's calling. And my health crisis really changed that and made me reconsider. So going back to 2010, I was basically a guy working in a cubicle, okay? And I started to come down with symptoms, okay? And it started off innocently, like, oh, that food upset my stomach. Oh, my skin's kind of itchy today. Oh, I just feel tired today. And over the course of about, it's hard to say, but probably a year or two, by late 2010, I was dealing with basically terrible chronic pain where my muscles always felt sore every day. Body always felt sore no matter how little I worked out and how much I rested, okay? Dealt with an eczema all over my hands, okay? And then when I got stressed out, it got even worse. I didn't want to shake anybody's hand. I kept my hands in my pockets. I didn't want people to see my hands because I was really ashamed of how just crusty and red and gross they were. And they itched and they were uncomfortable, and it was not fun. Also dealt with a lot of chronic fatigue. I was knocking back 2 to 3 Monster Energy drinks just to get through the workday. And then on the weekends would sleep a lot because I was just really tired. I just fatigued really easily. And basically my famous line was like, "Oh, I'm tired, right? I'm tired, I'm gonna go lie down. I'm gonna go lie down. I'm gonna go lie down." Okay. Then I also dealt with really bad brain fog where it became hard to concentrate at work. Deal with a lot of like numbers and logistics and things like that and spreadsheets, and it became really hard to focus and do the work. And then lastly, I dealt with really bad digestive issues, where it got to the point where every meal I ate was like, "Oh, I feel that," right? And in between meals, had constant gas, bloating, discomfort. My stomach was just basically a mess all of the time. And being a red-blooded American male at the time, I didn't really do much about it, right? I just kind of let it ride. I chalked it up to I'm getting old at 27, 28 years old, and didn't really want to do anything about it until it really got to the point that was interfering with my life. And so finally I conceded, I gave in, and I went to my primary care doctor. And I really had, I had some knowledge of health. I was actually, before college, so in college I studied mechanical engineering. In high school, I was part of a biotechnology academy. It was like a pilot program, and this was in the late 90s. And so I learned a lot of biology, chemistry, biochemistry, advanced stuff. And we were doing PCR back in the 90s. And so I had some knowledge of biology, biochemistry, but it was it was from high school. I didn't think I knew that much until I went and started looking into the science of things. And actually, I was armed with quite a bit of information from that program. But anyway, so I had some, but I really had no knowledge of how health and disease worked. Okay. And I, at the time, put full trust in the medical model. I thought that if I go to this doctor with diseases A, B, and C, or problems or symptoms A, B, and C, he's going to diagnose me with diseases X, Y, and Z, and then they're going to give me medications, D, E, and F, right? And I'm going to take those medications, and I'm going to get better, and I'm going to get well, and life will go back to the way it was. Anybody ever approached their autoimmune disease that way, like their chronic illness journey, and think, okay, I'm just going to go to the doctor and everything's going to be fine? And you quickly find out that it doesn't work that way, that it's not that simple, that there aren't just cures for these problems. Each one isn't a separate disease symptom. And so my journey, I went to my primary care doctor and they said, oh, okay, you've got eczema on your hands, we're going to refer you to the dermatologist. You've got digestive issues, we're going to refer you to the GI doctor, and then you've got this chronic pain and fatigue stuff, we're going to refer you to just a rheumatologist to look at your blood work, right? And so one doctor's visit suddenly ballooned into 3. Okay, and I thought, okay, this is good. I'm seeing the specialists, right? And so each of them was doing their own tests, running their own labs, and wasn't coming up with much. Nothing they could really diagnose me with, right? And so a lot of times they gave me like a steroid cream for the hands. They just told me to take over-the-counter drugs for my stomach, over-the-counter drugs for my pain, and wasn't really getting better, right? So I'd say, well, hey, I'm not really getting better. What can I do? And they say, okay, well, we'll just refer you to the subspecialist. We'll refer you to the next specialist, right? And so I kept going from doctor to doctor to doctor, trying to get a diagnosis, trying to get some help, and really getting nowhere. And no one could really diagnose me with anything firm. These appointments were often, just a few minutes, and they would just kind of blow me off. And I was starting to get frustrated. Not that any of these people were bad people necessarily, but it was the system. I was getting essentially passed around by the system from doctor to doctor to doctor. No one could really help me. They would run blood work. They'd say, okay, there's no inflammatory markers. Your thyroid looks normal. This looks normal. Your metabolic panel looks normal. All these things look normal, right? And then they would say, well, good news. Your labs look normal, right? And I remember hearing that multiple times and just being like, what are you talking about? How is that good news? I'm sick. I'm struggling with stuff. If my labs don't show it, isn't that bad? Doesn't that mean that you can't find what's wrong with me? But these doctors were often just working off of a piece of paper, treating the piece of paper, not the patient, right? And so in their mind, I'm off the hook. This guy's blood work's normal, right? But it just made me more furious. It made me angry. I started to get really upset that not only was no one helping me, but the biggest thing for me was that no one really acted like they cared. There was a bunch of short appointments, right? And there's just pass me off to the next guy. And what I really wanted was someone to just sit me down and say, Ben, we've looked at your labs, everything comes up normal, we've done all the tests, we can't really find what's wrong with you, but we're going to investigate it further, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to get you well. No one ever said that to me. They just treated me like a hot potato, right? Couldn't help me, didn't want to admit that they couldn't help me, so they just passed me off to the next guy. And after about 6 to 8 months of this, just getting shuffled around by the system, I just threw my hands up. I was just annoyed, right? Because in my line of work, if you weren't doing your job and you were just trying to pass the buck to someone else, that was a recipe for trouble. You're going to get called out. But in this system, there was really no accountability. And so I said, you know what? I got to figure this out on my own. And so, because by this point, things had gotten worse. My digestion was just like a mess every single day. The eczema on my hands was just like raging. I had so much fatigue. My performance at work was really dropping. It was hard for me to even get to work on time in the morning. It was hard for me to do all my job duties. My boss was really getting on me of like, Ben, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you got to get this turned around or you're going to fail your next performance review, which is tech industry code for you're going to get fired, i.e. they do a performance review in every January, and if you pass it, you keep your job. If you fail it, they let you go. And at this company, they did not mess around, and if you weren't performing, they they got you out of there and they hired someone else. And so I system message received, zero distortion, sir. And I realized like I was not going to make it on this merry-go-round of all these practitioners passing the buck and me being the buck that they passed. And I was going to have to figure this out on my own. And I knew that I had, the engineering background. I had a science background. I also had the biotechnology background from my pilot program in high school. And I thought, I'm going to dig into this and figure it out. And that's when I got involved in two things. Number one, massive self-education and research, and number two, massive self-experimentation, right? Because in my mind at the time, I thought, okay, I must have some mystery disease that they can't figure out, right? So I have a science background and I actually care about myself, so I'm going to invest the time to figure it out, right? And this was 2010. There was information on the internet, but there was not information like there is now. And so, like I said, I grew up in the medical model. Okay, my grandfather was a medical doctor. My stepfather is a medical doctor. One of my uncles is a medical doctor. I knew no other way. I knew nothing of these other alternative and Eastern modalities. I thought they were all hogwash. I went to an Ivy League school where if you didn't do medicine, right, it was because you couldn't get into medical school, right? So it was like someone who was doing anything alternative, right, was doing it because they were too stupid to go to real medical school. Well, I had gotten to this point where the people that went to real medical school couldn't help me. And I was willing to consider alternative things because I was under the gun to get better. Because not only was my health falling apart, but if I lost my job, then I was really hosed. And so I started massively self-educating and massively self-experimenting. And I was looking at just every alternative thing. I was trying all these supplements and the health stories and tinctures and vials and herbs and stuff like that. I was trying out all these other modalities like acupuncture and colonics and just throwing the kitchen sink of other things at it. And a lot of the stuff didn't work. And I kept trying. And I remember at one point having this conversation with my gastroenterologist, just asking him, hey, I know I'm having all these digestive issues. Do you think it could be something that I'm eating? And he immediately dismissed that comment. It's like, no, this has nothing to do with that. This has nothing to do with what you're eating. You just have a diseased digestive tract. And I thought, that's interesting, because you're saying that the inside of my intestines is diseased and inflamed. And if I think about it, the only thing that passes through the inside of my digestive tract is the food that I'm eating. And you're saying that the only thing that passes through this digestive tract that touches it is not the thing causing the inside of the digestive tract to be diseased and inflamed. It just hit me as so absurdly illogical. I had to challenge him, right? And I not challenge him there because I knew I didn't know anything about nutrition. I wasn't gonna be like, well, I disagree with you, sir. Here's the research. But I began to look into it, right? I began to think maybe something I'm eating is causing problems. And so I went and I got a food allergy test, okay? Thinking, okay, I'm gonna find out what food I'm eating that's causing disease, and I am going to get rid of it, right? I'm going to find maybe I have a gluten allergy, maybe I have I don't know, right? Maybe something I'm eating is causing, which didn't make much sense to me at the time because I'm thinking, why would I have problems now? But if I ate this stuff my whole life, why didn't I have problems back then? And the test came back very telling, okay? What was funny was most of the time I would take forever to get results, but I really wanted to know the food allergy test results. I remember calling the lab every single day. Hey, you got the results yet? You get the doctor's office. Nope, don't have them, right? Finally, the guy calls me back on a Friday afternoon. He's like, Ben, I know you've been calling our office every day. I finally have your results. You want to go over them? I said, yeah. He says, okay, well, we did tests. And we found that you, on a scale of 1 to 7, which I don't know where they come up with those numbers, but he said you were a 4 out of 7 for the following foods. He proceeds to read off a laundry list of foods, okay? Soy, gluten, dairy, brewer's yeast, wheat. I'm trying to remember, this was 15 years ago. It's just this, I'm like, okay, you done yet, bro? And I'm just hearing this, and it's like, this is all the food that I eat. cheese, so I said to the guy, okay, so what are you going to give me for this? And it was like the biggest record scratch that I never actually heard. The guy was like, oh, well, there's no pill that we give you for these allergies. You have to just cut these foods out of your diet. That was the record scratch of like, well, if I cut these foods out of my diet, what am I going to eat? Gluten-free air sandwiches? It was literally everything that I was eating. And so I had to basically start from square one of like, okay, I guess I need to eat healthier, right? And I had been reading things that had said, hey, if you eat healthier, a lot of these problems go away. But I convinced myself that I ate healthy because I was always thin my whole life. And I thought, okay, if I was eating the wrong foods, I'd be fat, and I'm not fat, so it must not be the food that I'm eating, right? It was a big denial game, but I was living on a steady diet of energy drinks, Mountain Dew, burritos, and takeout Chinese food, right? And Chipotle for the win. We had Freebirds. I was living in Austin, Texas. It was all about the Freebirds and the Thundercloud subs. Oh, God. I mean, I had the most, like, looking back, and the most horrific eating habits that I thought I was getting away with it because I was always thin. And I remember at work, you know, they bring food in. They bring in cupcakes or pizza or, you know, bagels or, you know, cupcakes or something. And I would always be the guy who took two slices of pizza, 2 brownies, 2 cupcakes. And, you know, and I thought, hey, I'm young, I work out a lot, you know, this is fine, you know, and people would say, that's going to catch up to you. It's going to catch up to you. And I thought, no, it's not. I have good genes. I'm not going to get fat. Right. And we're just kind of ironic because my dad's always been overweight most of his life. He isn't now, which is another story. But I thought, I have good genes. I've never been fat, and I eat like this, so I must be, it's okay. And what's funny is they said it's going to catch up to you, which were very eerily prophetic words, because it did catch up to me, but not in the way that anybody could have anticipated. I didn't get fat, but I got extremely inflamed, chronically ill. Okay, so got the food allergy test back. Began another chapter of my healing journey of the what can I eat? And so at this point, I got this idea that I was just, since I lived off a lot of microwave food, I needed stuff that was easy to cook because I didn't want to learn how to cook. I didn't want to be one of those people that cooked, right? Like, I hate to say it, but I was rather misogynistic. I thought that was a woman's job, right? And I'm just going to be real about that. Now I make my own food all the time. And I make my fiance's food a lot of the time too. Sometimes she makes me food, but you know, we split the duties pretty equally. But I make most of my own meals. She makes most of her own meals. But anyway, I thought, okay, how can I keep it really simple and stupid? Because I don't want to learn to cook, right? And I microwave things or I get takeout, you know, and I thought, okay, in my brilliant idea, I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll do smoothies, right? Because a blender is a lot like a microwave, right? You open the door to the machine, you put the food inside, you close the door, you hit the button, and a minute later, 2 minutes later, your food's ready, right? And so I thought that's what I'll do. And so literally that was how I got started in my healing journey. Was I just started taking whatever fruits and vegetables or whatever I had in the fridge, throwing it in a blender, not really thinking too hard about it, and hit and blend, okay? And a lot of times the stuff didn't taste that good. Some of it tasted good, some of it didn't, but I just kind of knocked it back. And at some point, I got the idea maybe I should look up recipes on the internet, okay? Again, this is 2010, YouTube existed, and I went on YouTube and I taught smoothie recipes, right? And I found this guy, I'll never forget. He is one of my mentors to this day. His name is Dan McDonald, and he had the nickname on YouTube, the Life Regenerator. And at this point in time, in 2010, when I found his channel, he was living in the woods in an RV in Washington State in the middle of nowhere. And he would record these 10-minute videos on his little phone, on his little camera, and upload them to YouTube. And it would be him making a smoothie or a juice in front of his RV in the woods. And he would share these stories, and while he was making the the smoothie. And I thought, okay, this guy's kind of goofy. He's kind of a weirdo, but it's entertaining and it's engaging, right? And so I started following the recipes and making the smoothies, and they tasted better, right? And then eventually I got a juicer. I was inspired by him. And this guy, he wasn't a doctor. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't anybody with any medical authority, interestingly. But I just he was charismatic. He was funny. He was just an entertaining guy, like someone that you would want to be friends with. And I met him in person years later, and he was exactly the same way he is on video as he's in person. Very authentic, loving guy, just wants to help people, had his own health challenges. And so he, in these videos, would not only show you how to make recipes, but he would preach about how, if you want to heal cancer, you should drink this, right? And I was like, oh my God, dude, what are you, crazy? Like, just shut up and make the smoothie recipe. Because I really thought a lot of the stuff he was saying was out there. But, the more I made his smoothies and made his recipes, the better I felt, right? And the more I consumed that, the better I felt. And then eventually his message started clicking and making sense. Like, you know what? I think this guy might be onto something. I think fruits and vegetables may be the way to heal disease because it's working for me. And it slowly changed my perspective on things, because I thought, man, I have gotten so much better, so much healthier. Like at this point, my chronic pain went away within a week or two. Okay, my digestion started improving, my brain fog lifted, my energy was through the roof because I was consuming large amounts of fruits and vegetables and doing a lot of smoothies and juices. And I just noticed that, man, I am just feeling so much better, right? And I saw so many doctors, no one could help me. And then I'm basically just eating fruits and vegetables, drinking smoothies from recipes I found on the internet, and I'm feeling way better. And I thought, maybe this nut job is actually onto something, right? And I'll never forget, because I had such bad digestive issues, I would carry little tabs of Pepto-Bismol, in those single serving things in my laptop bag. And I remember one day I had to find a thumb drive or something in my laptop bag. And I was sifting through my laptop bag trying to find it. And I unzipped this one compartment, and there was just 30 plus of these single serving tablets of Pepto-Bismol in there. And I realized it had been months since I had taken one. That I used to consume 2 or 3 of them every day, that I just had them in mass quantities because I was constantly popping them because I was constantly having digestive issues, and I hadn't needed them in months. And I witnessed my body heal itself slowly, so slowly over a period of months that I kind of forgot how sick I used to be. And it was really in that time frame that I really witnessed firsthand the body's ability to heal itself when you provide it the right conditions. I kind of backdoored into it all, right? I just want to make smoothies because I want to make something that's not on that food list, that's not going to make my stomach hurt. And I ended up reversing my disease, whatever it was, because it was never diagnosed. No doctor could ever actually diagnose it, right? But I ended up getting healthy kind of by accident. And not only did I get healthy, I just want to put this in perspective, I got better than I was before I got sick, okay? Not only did I just not be chronically fatigued anymore, I had tons of energy. I had signed up for Tough Mudder Race, Warrior Dash, half marathon. My fitness was the best it's ever been because I had so much energy. My mental clarity, my mental focus was through the roof. I had gone from barely being able to get my job done, worst in my department, to getting to the point where I was done my work day around 1:32 in the afternoon, right? And then I would just sit at my desk and try to act busy. And eventually I just started going for walks. And I would go for a walk from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., come back, answer a few emails, be out the door at 5 o'clock. And no one really said anything because Ben was getting his work done. Ben was a performer, right? And during that time, the time was freed up because I was just so much more effective at my job. And I had all this mental clarity because I wasn't consuming all these foods that were just poisoning my brain, right? And it really made me, and about that time I'd hit 30 years old, and I really began to reevaluate my life of just health had become my hobby. I had become one of those people who was obnoxiously evangelical, you gotta drink these green smoothies, it's life-changing, and everybody be what's gotten into Ben? He's so weird. I'd be the guy in the break room eating half a watermelon with a spoon, and people just thought Ben was weird, I realized that I had developed knowledge and a skill set that could help other people. That this journey, I never knew what I was really that passionate about. Like, I had done stand-up comedy, I was passionate about that. I wasn't really passionate about my career. That I had never really found like my thing. I was really into competitive footbag. Certain things that were hobbies I was passionate about, but I hadn't found like my calling in life. And I realized, kind of just by going a lot of these walks, because I didn't have any more work to do, it made me just reevaluate my life and say, okay, you know what, actually, this health thing is something I'm really passionate about, I'm really excited about, and I could use this skill set to help other people. And that really dawned on me. Like, I remember it was June 11th of 2012 that I realized, like, oh man, I could do this as a career. And so originally I thought, okay, I can go to medical school. I have the science background, I have the biotechnology background, but I really didn't want to learn drugs and surgery to go into practice and never use them. I didn't want to go through all that rigmarole to gain a skill set that I would actually put aside and say, no, actually don't do this. Like, diet and lifestyle is how you're going to heal, right? And so I looked into being instead a naturopathic doctor, because I thought, okay, well, I'm actually learn more of this stuff and be able to help people that way. And then I found out, coincidentally enough, that naturopathy is not licensed in Texas where I was living. And so you couldn't really be a naturopathic doctor. And I decided, interestingly enough, that if I was going to do this, I could go and be a chiropractor. And then I could get the knowledge of the anatomy and physiology and the pathology and all that stuff and practice essentially as a de facto naturopath, helping people with diet and lifestyle to heal. And, learning the chiropractic skill set, knowing that it wasn't harmful to people, but it wasn't really what I was going to focus on. Funny enough, I still practice as a chiropractor to this day, but I went back to school, went back to Los Angeles to go to chiropractic school, and I had the unique opportunity to do what's called a preceptorship at a place called True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California. And I lived on site at a residential health center for 3 months, where they basically did therapeutic diet using a specific dietary protocol and fasting as well to help people heal from autoimmune disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, joint pain, all sorts of cancers, all sorts of things, right? And I had my own healing story. I'd met other people who'd healed in similar ways. I'd read case studies online. You see before and after pictures, but it was a completely different experience to be in a clinic where people would literally come in extremely chronically ill, and then they'd change their diet, put them on a fast, and in weeks to months, they'd be walking out of there a completely different human being. I remember there was one woman who I was working the night shift because one intern always had to like stay up with the phone in case anybody had an emergency. And I remember, we have a new client. She's coming in late on a Sunday night. She just had a stroke, and she had driven down from Sacramento. A friend had driven her down because she couldn't drive because she had a stroke, and she was on a cane. She was like 52 years old, and half of her face was droopy, and she was having trouble walking. And I remember they put her on just the food, just therapeutic diet for 7 days. And I remember I would check on her every morning, and one day she said, "Hey, Ben, check this out." And she got up and she walked across the room like no stroke had ever happened, right? I saw people heal from the craziest things. I can make an entire video about that experience, but that really cemented my not only my knowledge of this, but my certainty of how well we can get results. And so that's now how I work with people. I work with people online. Obviously, there's these video classes that I've created. There's this book. If you feel like you need a deeper level of support, I do have a coaching program called the Autoimmune Foundation's Coaching Program. There'll be a link down below. If you're interested in that and want to make an investment in your health, you can apply for that program there. And so that's really how I work with people now is online, virtually. And I really enjoy it. We're going to get to, when we get to part 5 of this, the last part, we go over a bunch of case studies of people that have helped reverse autoimmune disease. So I think that's pretty much it. Is there anything else? I have a list here of what I wanted to talk about. But yeah, that's it. So, Anyway, this was part one, and next part we're going to go into why the medical model fails a lot of people, like it failed me, and I'm guessing if you're watching this video, it hasn't, it's failed you as well, and that's not to knock on doctors, but we're going to get into why that's so, and what's going wrong, what they're not getting, and a better model of doing things other than the medical model. Then we'll get into the 3 foods that create disease, that cause disease, and the 3 foods that create health and reverse disease. And then lastly, like I talked about, we'll get into those case studies. So I hope you enjoy. Share these videos if you get a lot out of them. This information is put out for free for everybody to be informed, and I hope you enjoy.